Nestled in the rolling hills of Mpumalanga, South Africa, Pilgrim's Rest was a town frozen in time. Once a bustling gold mining settlement during the late 19th century, it now stood as a historical monument to a bygone era. The quaint, picturesque streets, lined with old buildings and vintage street lamps, gave visitors a glimpse into the past. Yet, beneath its charming facade, Pilgrim's Rest held dark secrets that whispered through the shadows. Richard Callahan, a renowned historian with a fascination for the paranormal, arrived in Pilgrim's Rest on a crisp autumn afternoon. He had heard countless tales of ghostly apparitions and eerie occurrences in the old mining town. Determined to uncover the truth, Richard planned to document his findings in a book that would both captivate and terrify his readers. As he strolled through the town, Richard felt an unsettling presence, as if unseen eyes were watching his every move. The air was thick with a sense of foreboding, and the once vibrant streets seemed eerily deserted. He made his way to the Royal Hotel, a historic inn that had been in operation since the gold rush days. The innkeeper, an elderly woman named Mrs. Hughes, greeted Richard with a warm smile. "Welcome to Pilgrim's Rest, Mr. Callahan. I hope you enjoy your stay." "Thank you, Mrs. Hughes," Richard replied, his curiosity piqued. "I've heard many stories about this town. Do you believe in the ghostly legends?" Mrs. Hughes' smile faded, replaced by a serious expression. "There are things in this town that defy explanation. The spirits of the miners who toiled in the darkness still linger, and their presence can be felt by those who are sensitive to such things." Richard's interest was piqued further. "I would like to learn more about these spirits. Can you tell me where to start?" Mrs. Hughes handed him a worn map of the town, marked with various points of interest. "This will guide you. Be careful, Mr. Callahan. The spirits of Pilgrim's Rest are not to be taken lightly." Armed with the map, Richard set out to explore the town. His first stop was the old mining office, a dilapidated building that had once been the heart of the gold rush operations. The air inside was stale, and dust motes danced in the beams of sunlight that filtered through the cracked windows. Richard began to sift through the old records and documents, hoping to uncover any information about the miners who had worked in Pilgrim's Rest. As he read through the faded pages, he discovered accounts of tragic accidents, mysterious disappearances, and unexplained deaths. The names of the lost miners seemed to leap off the pages, their stories demanding to be told. One name, in particular, stood out: Tommy Sullivan, a young miner who had vanished without a trace in 1893. According to the records, Tommy had been a well-liked and hard-working man, but his sudden disappearance had left the town in turmoil. Rumors had swirled about his fate, with some claiming he had been murdered and others suggesting he had fallen victim to the treacherous conditions of the mine. Determined to uncover the truth about Tommy's disappearance, Richard decided to visit the old cemetery where many of the miners had been laid to rest. The cemetery, located on a hill overlooking the town, was a somber and eerie place. Weathered tombstones marked the final resting places of those who had perished in the pursuit of gold. As Richard wandered among the graves, he felt a sudden chill in the air. The temperature dropped noticeably, and he could see his breath in the cold. He paused before a gravestone that bore Tommy Sullivan's name, the inscription barely legible due to years of erosion. "Tommy Sullivan," Richard whispered, his voice barely audible. "What happened to you?" As if in response to his question, a soft whisper carried on the wind, sending shivers down Richard's spine. He turned, half expecting to see someone standing behind him, but the cemetery was empty. The whisper grew louder, and Richard realized it was coming from Tommy's grave. With a sense of trepidation, Richard knelt by the gravestone and placed his hand on the cold, weathered surface. The whisper transformed into a voice, faint and distant, yet unmistakably real. "Help me," the voice pleaded. "Find the truth." Richard's heart raced as he listened to the ghostly plea. He knew he had to dig deeper into the mystery of Tommy's disappearance. He made his way back to the Royal Hotel, determined to find more clues. That evening, as Richard sat in his room, he reviewed the documents he had collected from the mining office. Among the papers was a tattered journal, its pages filled with the scribblings of a miner. The entries detailed the daily struggles and hardships faced by the workers, but one passage stood out. October 15, 1893, strange things are happening in the mine. The men are on edge, whispering about shadows in the darkness. Tommy went missing today. We fear the worst. Richard's pulse quickened. The date matched the time of Tommy's disappearance. The journal hinted at a sinister force lurking within the mine, a force that may have claimed Tommy's life. Determined to uncover the truth, Richard decided to explore the abandoned mine. He gathered his equipment, flashlight, camera, and a recorder, and set off at dawn. The entrance to the mine was a gaping maw of darkness, and a sense of dread washed over him as he approached. Richard took a deep breath and stepped inside. The tunnel walls were damp and cold, and the air was heavy with the scent of earth and decay. The beam of his flashlight pierced the darkness, revealing rusted tracks and remnants of old mining equipment. As he ventured deeper into the mine, Richard felt a growing sense of unease. The shadows seemed to move and twist, playing tricks on his mind. The whispers he had heard in the cemetery returned, growing louder and more urgent. "Help me," the voices echoed, sending chills down his spine. Richard pressed on, following the sound of the voices. He reached a fork in the tunnel and paused, unsure of which path to take. The whispers seemed to come from both directions, but one tunnel felt colder, more foreboding. With a sense of trepidation, Richard chose the colder tunnel and continued his descent. The whispers grew louder, and he felt a presence behind him. He turned, but there was nothing there. "Show yourself," Richard called out, his voice echoing through the tunnel. "I'm here to help." For a moment, there was silence. Then, a ghostly figure appeared before him, a young man with hollow eyes and a haunted expression. Richard recognized him as Tommy Sullivan. Tommy's ghostly form flickered like a candle in the wind, his eyes filled with anguish. "Help us," he pleaded. "We are trapped. We cannot rest." Richard felt a surge of empathy for the tormented spirit. "What happened to you, Tommy? Why are you trapped here?" Tommy's voice was filled with sorrow as he recounted the events leading to his disappearance. He had been working in the mine when he stumbled upon a hidden chamber filled with gold. Excited by his discovery, Tommy had rushed to tell his fellow miners, but before he could, a cave-in had trapped him in the darkness. The other miners had tried to rescue him, but the unstable tunnels had collapsed further, sealing his fate. "We were all betrayed," Tommy continued. "The mine owner knew about the danger, but he forced us to work anyway. We died for his greed, and now we are bound to this place." Richard's anger flared at the injustice. "Is there a way to free you and the others?" Tommy nodded. "You must find the hidden chamber and uncover the truth. Only then can we find peace." With renewed determination, Richard pressed on, guided by Tommy's spirit. The tunnels grew narrower and more treacherous, but he refused to turn back. The whispers of the other phantom miners joined Tommy's, their pleas for help echoing through the darkness. After hours of searching, Richard finally reached the hidden chamber. The walls glittered with veins of gold, but the sight was marred by the skeletal remains of the miners who had perished in the collapse. Among them was Tommy, his ghostly form standing beside his bones. Richard's heart ached at the sight. He began to document the chamber, taking photographs and recording the evidence needed to reveal the truth. As he worked, he uncovered an old, rusted lockbox. Inside were documents and ledgers detailing the mine owner's knowledge of the dangerous conditions and his decision to prioritize profit over safety. "This is the proof we need," Richard said, his voice filled with determination. "The world will know the truth, and you will finally find peace." Tommy's ghostly form smiled, a look of gratitude in his eyes. "Thank you, Richard. You have done more for us than anyone else ever did." With the evidence in hand, Richard made his way back to the surface. The journey was arduous, and the oppressive atmosphere of the mine weighed heavily on him. But he knew he had to see this through. Back in Pilgrim's Rest, Richard wasted no time. He headed straight to the local authorities with the documents and photographs he had collected. The officials listened intently as Richard presented his findings, their expressions shifting from skepticism to shock as the gravity of the evidence sank in. "This is damning," the chief inspector said, leafing through the ledgers. "The mine owner knew about the dangers and willingly put those men at risk. We must make this public." The news spread like wildfire through Pilgrim's Rest. The townspeople, long haunted by the mine's tragic past, were eager to learn the truth. A public meeting was called, and Richard was invited to present his findings. That evening, the town hall was filled to capacity. The air was thick with anticipation and a palpable sense of unease. Richard stood before the crowd, his heart pounding. He knew that the story he was about to tell would change the town forever. "Ladies and gentlemen," Richard began, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I have uncovered evidence that reveals the true story behind the tragic events at the Kimberley mine. The miners who lost their lives were not victims of accidents or natural causes. They were betrayed by the very people who were supposed to protect them." He proceeded to share the documents, photographs, and testimonies of the phantom miners. The audience listened in stunned silence, their faces reflecting a mix of horror and sorrow. As Richard concluded his presentation, he felt a sense of relief. The truth was finally out, and the spirits of the miners could rest. The revelation of the mine owner's betrayal sent shockwaves through Pilgrim's Rest. The townspeople, now aware of the injustices their ancestors had suffered, rallied together to honor the memory of the fallen miners. A memorial was erected at the entrance of the mine, a tribute to those who had lost their lives in the pursuit of gold. Richard, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa stood by the memorial, paying their respects. As they laid flowers at the base of the monument, a cold breeze swept through the area. Richard felt a familiar presence and knew that the spirits of the miners were watching. "Thank you for giving us peace," Tommy's voice echoed in Richard's mind. "We can finally move on." The temperature rose, and a sense of tranquility settled over the town. Richard felt a weight lift from his shoulders, knowing that he had fulfilled his promise to the phantom miners. In the years that followed, Pilgrim's Rest transformed from a place of sorrow to a beacon of hope and remembrance. The town embraced its history, preserving the stories of the miners and the investigation that had brought their plight to light. The memorial became a site of pilgrimage for those seeking to connect with the past and honor the bravery of the miners. Visitors from around the world came to pay their respects and learn about the town's rich history. Richard's book, The Phantom Miners of Pilgrim's Rest, became a bestseller, captivating readers with its gripping narrative and heartfelt portrayal of the miners' struggle. The story resonated deeply, touching the hearts of those who read it. Richard, Sarah, Tom, and Lisa continued their work, uncovering the secrets of the past and helping restless spirits find peace. Their bond, forged in the depths of the haunted mine, remained unbreakable. For Richard, the journey had been transformative. He had not only uncovered a dark chapter in history but had also forged a connection with the spirits of those who had suffered. The experience had deepened his understanding of the human condition and the importance of honoring the past. As he stood at the entrance of the Kimberley mine, gazing at the memorial, Richard felt a sense of fulfillment. The voices of the phantom miners had been silenced, their spirits finally at peace. And so, the legend of the phantom miners of Pilgrim's Rest lived on, a story of courage, redemption, and the enduring power of truth. The shadows of the past had been illuminated, and the spirits had found their rest, their voices forever etched into the annals of history. If you enjoyed the gripping and eerie tale of the phantom miners of Pilgrim's Rest and want more thrilling ghost stories and adventures, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us continue bringing you captivating and spine-chilling content that keeps you on the edge of your seat. Thank you for being a part of our storytelling journey.